On today's episode of Let's Talk Drones, we are flipping the script, and I'm giving you the reasons why I don't plan on buying DJI's newest drone, the DJI Flip. Let's not waste any more time. Let's talk drones. What's up? It's Chris, the Drone Geek, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Drones. That's right, today we're doing things a little bit differently. Normally, when a drone company comes out with a new drone, I get really excited and I think about all of the reasons why I could possibly justify spending money on these drones, especially those from DJI, because arguably, DJI does it better than just about any other company. However, this time around, I'm not as excited about the new drone from DJI. Of course, I'm talking about the DJI Flip that was released earlier this week, depending upon when I get this video done. And while this drone is cool, it just isn't the drone for me. There are a few reasons why I don't plan on buying the DJI Flip, but before we get into those, I do want to give you a quick rundown on the specs that have been published for the DJI Flip on DJI's website. First of all, when it comes to image quality, the Flip sports a 1/1.3 inch CMOS sensor. Now, this is the same sensor that we've seen in other DJI drones, including the DJI Mini 3, the Mini 3 Pro, the Mini 4 Pro, the Air 3, and even the telephoto sensor for the Air 3S. It's capable of shooting 12 megapixel and 48 megapixel photos, depending upon what you choose for the in-body processing. Do you want any or don't you? If you do choose to do the in-body processing, you get that 48 megapixel equivalent coming out of the camera. It's also capable of shooting 4K video, 4K at 60 frames per second in HDR, and 4K at 100 frames per second in slow motion. It is also capable of shooting D-Log-M, which is actually huge considering the level at which this drone will be sold. So this is touted as an entry-level drone on DJI's website. The fact that it can shoot D-Log-M is huge. As far as the actual drone's performance itself, it is a sub 250 gram drone, so it weighs less than 250 grams, which means it puts it in that special category for the FAA and other aviation entities across the world. It's got a max flight time of 31 minutes. It has forward and downward obstacle sensing and a max video transmission range of 13 kilometers. Also, it's got 2 gigabytes of internal storage, so if you forget an SD card on a shoot, you're covered for at least a little bit with that 2 gigs of internal storage. The final spec that I want to share with you for the DJI Flip is actually the price tag, and this is the straw that broke the camel's back for me when it came to determining whether or not I was going to purchase this drone. As of right now on DJI's website, the DJI Flip with the DJI RCN3, that's the basic controller and 1 battery, is selling for $439. If you want the RC2, that advanced controller that has the built-in screen, it's going to be $639. And if you want the Fly More combo, which as of the recording of this video is currently sold out on DJI's website, well, you're gonna have to cough up $779 for the DJI Flip. So, why am I not purchasing this drone? Well, first it has to do with how it would fit into my workflow. When I look at the on-paper specs for the camera, it's not anything I don't already have. In fact, the camera from the Flip is actually limited because while it can shoot D-Log-M, and it's the same camera essentially that we saw in the Mini 3, Mini 4, Air 3, and the telephoto camera for the Air 3S, it doesn't have the ability to actually rotate itself 90 degrees to get a true 4K portrait mode shot like my Mini 4 Pro. It is able to shoot portrait mode, but it crops it down to 2.7K or 1080p depending upon what you want to shoot at. While that's not the end of the world and actually still produces a pretty solid image, I like the added flexibility of shooting a true 4K portrait mode when needed. Essentially, the way I see it, if you've already got a consumer drone from DJI, again, I'm talking about the Minis and the Airs, this would be redundant to your fleet. You wouldn't necessarily need this drone because you already have the camera technology and really arguably access to better camera technology when it comes to some of the bells and whistles that come with those drones. The next reason that I'm not purchasing the DJI Flip has to do with the lack of onboard remote ID transmission. Now, this is something that I just learned from our buddy Ken Dono over at Original Dobo. He posted his initial thoughts video for the DJI Flip and shared that there is no active onboard remote ID for this drone. So it's not broadcasting remote ID as of the recording of this video, according to Original Dobo. If that is true, which I believe it is because Ken usually has pretty good information on his YouTube channel, If that is true, that means that it does not comply with Category 1 operations for operations over people. If you're not familiar with what Category 1 entails for OOP or operations over people, you must have a drone that's less than 250 grams. It must have non-lacerating or totally enclosed propellers, and it also has to broadcast remote ID. If the drone can check all three of those boxes, it can be considered operations over people compliant. That means you can fly Category 1 with that drone over people and you don't need a waiver. Because the DJI Flip does not come natively with remote ID actively broadcasting on board, it's not OOP compliant. And if you added a remote ID broadcast module to the drone, you'd increase the weight, which means it's no longer a sub 250 gram drone. That also automatically disqualifies it. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place with this drone, and there's really no way to make it Category 1 compliant at the current juncture unless DJI releases a firmware update that allows it to broadcast remote ID. Now, if this drone was Category 1 compliant, I would purchase it. For $439, having the option to just launch a drone that's automatically operations over people compliant and has the camera technology on board equivalent to the Mini 3, Mini 4, and the Air 3 and Air 3S, that's a no-brainer to me. But because it does not broadcast remote ID right out of the box, there's really no point for me to go out and purchase this drone. Now, if that changes, my tune may change and I may be more interested in the Flip, but as it stands right now, that would be the only thing this drone was really good for from my eyes, my perspective, because otherwise it's just the same drone that I've purchased already twice in the Mini 4 Pro and the Air 3S. The third reason I'm not purchasing the Flip has to do with its somewhat gimmicky nature. Now, I'm not saying that to be too harsh against DJI. I really do appreciate the new form factor in this drone that we're seeing and some of the new-ish features we've seen over the past few drones that translate to the Flip, but if I'm being completely honest, over the last 8 to 9 months, it really feels like DJI has been headhunting 00 Robotics, who are responsible for the Hover Air drones. They've just been putting out drones that try to take up the market share that 00 Robotics had captured previously with the Hover Air X1 and the newest iterations of the Hover Air drones. The Flip has the same autonomous flight modes that came on the Neo, and really, if I had to encapsulate what the Flip is, it's essentially the DJI Neo, but instead of leaning towards the Avata form factor and flyability, it's leaning more towards the DJI Mini form factor and flyability. And the final reason that I'm not purchasing the DJI Flip is because I had the privilege to be able to see this drone in action before it actually released. I'm not going to get into great detail about the who, what, when, where, or why, but I did meet somebody that had the Flip pre-release, and they allowed me to fly it, they allowed me to see it in flight, and we got to talk a little bit about their experience with the drone and just our general opinion about the Flip, and I wasn't overly impressed. Is it a bad drone? Not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just lacking in the flight performance and the camera specs enough that I don't feel like this is one I need to rush out and buy. When you look at the form factor for the Flip, it sort of takes on the same appearance as a Cinewhoop with those big prop guards around the propellers and arms. If you know anything about Cinewhoops, you know that they are difficult to fly in more adverse wind conditions or airflow conditions. So this drone really isn't ideal because it won't be able to handle wind even as well as like the Mini 4 Pro or even the Mini 3. It's going to have a harder time because it's got more surface area that's going to catch more wind, more airflow, and make it harder to keep in place. When you combine that with the fact that it has essentially the same camera technology on board as the Mini drones and as the Air drone, the single Air drone, the Air 3, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to go out and purchase this because it's not bringing anything super intangible to the table that sets it apart from the rest of those drones, especially since you can't fly it over people. Before I turn you completely off to the DJI Flip, I do just want to talk a little bit about who this drone is built for, because it's not me. And if you're any type of professional in the aerial imaging space or in any type of imaging space, it's not for you either. But if you don't do aerial imaging for a living, if you don't do photography for a living, you don't do videography for a living, you just like to have fun with camera technology and drone technology, this might be a drone that you could be interested in. First of all, while it's not the most compact folding drone that DJI has ever designed, it does fold down into a nice little package. So it's really easily transportable and not hard to fit into just about any bag that you might carry day to day. On top of that, it does have those autonomous flight modes we talked about just a few minutes ago that make it easy for any content creator or just a dad, a mom, whoever that wants to capture their family moments from a third-person perspective without having to constantly be behind the camera. Those autonomous flight modes really enable you to be able to do that. It is strong in those categories. Additionally, this drone is really easy to get started with. When you open it up, it actually turns on automatically. I've never seen that from a DJI drone before. It's always been press and hold on the battery button to turn the drone on. With the Flip, as long as the battery's installed, you just open up the folding arms and it turns on automatically. Now you do need to double press the battery button to turn it off, but when you're talking about a quick capture, you need to grab a moment because it's happening in real time and you don't want to miss it. It is very quick and perhaps the easiest I've ever seen a DJI drone be deployed. I'll continue to beat this drum. This drone is not made for people like me. However, it is made for people that are new to drone technology. So whether you're looking to purchase your very first drone, or maybe you've already purchased 1 or 2 drones and you're looking to add something new to your fleet, I would strongly consider the DJI Flip. It may not have a lot that sets it apart from drones that have already been released by DJI, but it does have rock solid camera specs, and the flight specs also aren't that bad. And when you consider that there is a distinct possibility that DJI pushes a firmware update to the Flip that allows it to broadcast remote ID, now all of a sudden you have a drone that is Category 1 compliant. So there are a lot of factors at play here that could certainly make this a drone that's perfect for the right person, but this is definitely a drone that is not designed for folks that have been in the industry for a while, are earning a living off of aerial imaging, and need something that performs at a higher level. I would turn your attention to a Mavic, to an Air 3S, to an Inspire, something like that. The Flip is not designed for you and me. What do you think though? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you plan on buying the DJI Flip? Did you already order yours? I'm interested to know. Let me know down in the comments below. If you liked this video, hit the thumbs up icon down below. It helps me out a lot. It helps get this video out into the algorithm to more viewers like yourself. And if you really love this video, you love drone content shot by drones, about drones, and for drone pilots, my friend, this is the channel for you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. While you're at it, hit the bell icon too. You'll get a notification every time I post a new video. Before I wrap up, I did just want to share with you one thing that I did buy as soon as it hit shelves. Ta-da! That's right, we have the DJI O4 Air unit. This is not the light, this is the big boy. This is the 1/1.3 inch CMOS sensor on board. Really excited to install this on a drone. We'll be doing a video where I do just that. We'll put this on a drone and we'll see just how much better it is than the DJI O3 Air unit. Really excited about that. I've also got a couple other videos coming down the pipeline. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them right now. I'll be testing the Para-Zero parachute for the DJI Mavic 3. So if you're looking to fly over people, you need a parachute on the Mavic 3. If you want to fly a Mavic 3 OOP, I've got the parachute right here, right next to me. I'm gonna actually pull it up right here. We'll be doing some testing with this, and by testing, I mean we're gonna shut the motors off on my Mavic 3 and drop it between 350 and 400 feet to deploy this parachute just to see how well it works. A little nervous about that, but I do trust the technology. Another thing we have coming down the pipeline, I don't actually have them near me, so I can't grab them, but I have about 5 remote ID broadcast modules that I'll be comparing against one another. We have seen a lot of incidents in the news lately involving drones, and remote ID has come up time and again during those conversations. So I think it's important we talk about what's available to drone pilots out there if you want to stay compliant with remote ID. So we'll be comparing those 5 modules against each other so that you can see which one's the most bang for your buck. Until next time, I'm Chris, the Drone Geek, and I'm out of here. See ya.
Yo, what you say? Steady screaming, YOLO, right?